What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for April 23rd, 2021. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. And I thought this was a damn good show this week. Last week was kind of disappointing, obviously, by post-WrestleMania standards. But back to the usual blue brand quality of the shows, I thought this was very good. We only got a handful of matches. A lot of the stuff kind of happened backstage, which I'll get to at the end. I'll not really intersplice it here just because I'll leave it towards the end. But there was a lot of good stuff on the show that furthered feuds, build for next week. Got 2 title matches set for next week's loaded show, so we'll get to that as well. But it is just, it continues to amaze me watching SmackDown and realizing how much better the quality is from week to week. Last week was kind of a step down from the usual SmackDown quality, and again, from a post-WrestleMania standpoint, it really wasn't all that exciting. But on a normal week, SmackDown blows Raw out of the fucking water. This was a very good show. Raw was once again abysmal on Monday, and then SmackDown blows it out of the water. So I know NXT is usually a very good show, but I'm talking about like the main roster shows here, Raw and SmackDown. Considering that the same guy runs both shows, Vince McMahon, I believe they have the same creative team for both shows now, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty sure Bruce is doing both, if I'm not mistaken about them. That hasn't changed recently. It continues to amaze me that SmackDown is just a far more bearable and entertaining show than Raw every single week. I don't know if there's been one week in the last couple of months where Raw was better than SmackDown. But, yeah, it's just amazing. And it's not just because it's a 2-hour show either. It's the format, it's the storylines, and Raw has a lot of talented superstars. But for whatever reason, SmackDown knows how to use their stars better. Now, there are a handful of people they're not really doing anything with right now. I mean, Aleister Black was sitting on the fucking sidelines for 6 months, which we'll get to. Kalisto they weren't doing shit with before they fired him. You know, there's a lot of people on SmackDown right now that they either don't know, not too many people, but a handful of people they either don't know what to do with or have been MIA for weeks now, Shinsuke Nakamura being one of them. What the hell happened to Shinsuke? But overall, though, SmackDown has been a very good show for a while, and I thought this was a great show. So we opened the night with Daniel Bryan and Cesaro. Well, specifically Cesaro first, who was out to address his match last week against Jey Uso that was interrupted by Seth Rollins, and Rollins talked about how the only reason Cesaro is taking off now is because of Rollins and their WrestleMania match, because he shared the ring with the SmackDown savior, or whatever the hell he's calling himself now. Sensei, I think is what Pat McAfee referred to him as on commentary at one point. And by the way, Pat McAfee, a very welcome fit on the commentary desk. I think he's been great the last 2 weeks. And, that guy, Adnan Virk, from Monday Night Raw, the recent ESPN hiree they brought in, wasn't bad this week. He was better than he was last week, but Pat McAfee is just a much better fit. More knowledge of the product, more energy in his voice, more freedom, clearly. He's been a breath of fresh air on Friday Night SmackDown as far as the commentary is concerned. But anyway, so Rollins and Cesaro are going back and forth. Daniel Bryan comes out after Jey Uso was in there with Rollins attempting to attack Cesaro. And Rollins was trying to get Jey Uso to do his dirty work for him. And he was thinking, maybe we can stack the odds against Cesaro, and if you bring out Roman Reigns, blah, blah, blah. It was funny to see Rollins acknowledge Reigns. I'm pretty sure he did, unless I'm mistaken here. But Roman, when he came out after Bryan came out, and it was kind of a revolving door of superstars coming out, but this was more than your typical, a tag team match setup, which is exactly what happened, obviously. But the setup I thought was super interesting because you have a lot of intertwining stories right now. You have Cesaro, who wants a Universal Championship match. You have Daniel Bryan, who wants Cesaro to have a Universal Championship opportunity. You have Daniel Bryan, who is also feuding currently with Roman Reigns, coming off their recent battles in recent months. Roman Reigns is feuding with both Cesaro and Daniel Bryan at the same time. Edge, I believe, is nowhere to be seen. He was not mentioned on the show. He was not heard from. He was not seen. I don't know where Edge is currently, and hopefully he does resurface at some point. I thought we might, I thought we might see him at the end of the show, attacking Daniel Bryan to kind of kick off that feud, but I'll get to the Bryan stuff at the end. But you also have Jey Uso, who's the right-hand man, as his t-shirt says, for Roman Reigns, who has issues with Bryan and Cesaro. And then Rollins is involved in the mix as well. Him and Bryan don't really have any bad beef right now, but his issues are entirely with Cesaro, coming off his loss to Cesaro at WrestleMania. So it's a really cool mix right now. And again, at one point he was. Now I don't know where the hell he is. But Edge kind of lurking in the background too, could always resurface and re-enter the championship picture at any point if he wanted to. But yeah, this was great. Roman came out and flat out said, Cesaro, you're not on my level. Why would I face you? You're not on my level. So they kind of provided a hook for the rest of the show with Roman teasing that he might give Cesaro an answer as to whether he would give him a Universal Championship match or not. So that was a great hook. And then in the meantime, we got Bryan and Cesaro against Uso and Rollins. Now, Rollins, I believe, was hoping that Roman would be there at ringside with them, but Roman went right to the back when his promo was over. He came out, talked shit about Cesaro, talked shit about Bryan, and never once acknowledged Rollins. Now, unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've seen any interaction, to a certain extent, at least in the same vicinity, that Rollins and Roman have been in the same building, the same segment. I don't think we've seen that since late 2019. I remember they had a match on SmackDown. I think it was night one of the 2009 WWE draft, and that was a year and a half ago. Beyond that, you would probably have to go back 2 years ago when we had the last Shield reunion in early 2019. We haven't really seen a lot of Rollins and Roman with each other, and I'm sure at some point we will get that, and SmackDown has a slew of heels right now. So honestly, if they wanted to turn anyone face, Rollins might be the first pick, but I still think it's too soon for that. I would still wait a little while on that, probably until later on in the year or early 2022. But anyway, I thought this was very interesting as far as Roman dodging Rollins and Rollins acting kind of surprised by that. So Roman was not ringside for the match. Bryan and Cesaro win after Bryan hits the running knee on Uso, pins him for the victory. Surprised that Cesaro didn't win for his team, but that's merely nitpicking. So Rollins walked off on Uso towards the end. Why? I'm not sure. I guess just because, maybe because Roman, because Roman dodged him. Roman didn't acknowledge Rollins, so Rollins was pissed about that and took it out on Uso. They couldn't really get along, I guess. That's my assumption. But Rollins walks off. That allows Bryan and Cesaro to double-team Jey Uso afterward, and they were hoping that Roman would come out. If family is so important to him, why isn't he coming out there to save his cousin in Jey Uso? So Roman was nowhere to be found at that point. Bryan and Cesaro took turns attacking Uso with the Cesaro swing and then the uppercut, kind of providing, again, a hook for the rest of the show, and whether Roman would grant Cesaro his much-deserved Universal Championship opportunity. So then we had the sole women's match on the show that saw Tamina take on Nia Jax one-on-one in a rematch from the SmackDown right before WrestleMania. And as expected, it wasn't very good. Nia Jax is not very good. Tamina is not very good. So the match, therefore, was not very good. The best thing I can say about it was that it was kept short. Not so sweet, but on the shorter side. It was only around 2.5 minutes. And then we had the dreaded fucking roll-up with Tamina rolling up Nia Jax for the win. This might actually mean something if Nia and Shayna did not lose almost every match they were in. Shayna loses far more than Nia does one-on-one. But Nia has lost her fair matches as well. I'm not even advocating for Nia to win most of her matches. It's just that if you're the tag team champions and you want to look dominant, you should probably be winning a majority of your matches. That was not the case here. Tamina won. Who gives a fuck? Who cares? Why is this feud still going on? I mean, I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to that, and the answer is that it's because WWE doesn't have a lot of women's tag teams. So really, they have no choice aside from the fact that, despite the fact that Nia and Shayna firmly, decisively defeated Tamina and Natalya at WrestleMania. They have to continue the feud, because who else would you put in that spot? God forbid they put the Riot Squad in that spot, who are actually entertaining. Where the hell have they been in recent weeks? This was not good. So again, the best thing I can say about it was that it was on the shorter side. The unfortunate part is that because this is the featured feud in the undercard of the women's division right now on SmackDown, it's not getting a ton of time. I really have no desire to see Natalya and Shayna, yes, maybe, but Tamina and Nia in longer full-length matches. So as a result, their time is cut short. And as a result the women on SmackDown aren't getting a ton of time. They're getting some promo time backstage, and that's great, but as far as in-ring matches, they haven't had a lengthy match on the show in quite some time. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm complaining, because I don't want to see Nia and Tamina have a 10-minute match, but then don't be doing the feud in the first place. You know what I mean? We did get a longer match for the Intercontinental Championship on the show, and this was weird. So it was advertised coming into SmackDown on Twitter via, social media, whatever, that Apollo Crews would be defending the Intercontinental Championship. Didn't say against who. They just said he would be defending the Intercontinental Championship. So I assumed it would be an open challenge or whatever. Maybe some sort of a surprise. Maybe he picks his opponent and it's a scrub. No, it ended up being none other than Kevin Owens. And that's a pretty big match you can do for the Intercontinental Championship. Not like a money feud by any means, but it could be a feud at some point. They worked well together. They had a really good match. They were given around almost 15 minutes, so that was cool. I'll get to the finish in a second, which was lame, but the actual match was great, so why not advertise it in advance? And it's not even like it didn't make sense either. Yeah, Owens hasn't won a number one contenders match at all, but he is coming off 2 straight wins over Sami Zayn. He has some momentum right now. So it's not like he's lost a lot of his recent matches and there's no reason to not do the match or whatever. There's no reason to do the match. You know, he deserved the opportunity, so why not advertise it a week ahead? Why not advertise it in advance? I mean, even if it was on Friday's Twitter. On Twitter on Friday, they had said that Kevin Owens would be getting a shot at the Intercontinental Championship. You know what I mean? Just to give it away in a backstage segment right before the match happens, I thought was weird. We did get a bit of a back and forth between Big E and Owens on the show, and they brought up their history with Owens attacking the New Day a couple of years ago and kind of taking Big E's spot in the match, which I thought was funny. Or not in the match, in the New Day. Back in the spring of 2019 was when Big E was out hurt. But yeah, they went back and forth, and I liked that, meaning that Big E was upset with the fact that, Owens was getting another title opportunity before him. Now, Big E is getting a championship opportunity next week on SmackDown. And Owens was like, listen, you'll get your opportunity at some point, but I'm getting my first crack. And to be fair, he deserved it just because he's coming off of a couple of wins. Big E, not so much. He is coming off a loss at WrestleMania, but he is getting Apollo Crews back in the ring next week for the Intercontinental Championship, which is cool. So we got Crews and Owens for the championship here. Very good match. My only issue with it was that it ended via distraction roll-up. Another frickin' roll-up after what happened in the previous match with Tamina and Nia Jax, where Tamina rolled up Nia Jax. One is bad enough. A second one, especially in the subsequent match, is just terrible, lazy booking. So the actual match was good. It was entertaining. It was well wrestled. I could have done without the distraction roll-up finish, though. So Sami Zayn came out midway through. He was who distracted Owens. He sat in on commentary. He kind of danced on the grave of Kevin Owens afterward, because Kevin Owens won. He, I think, stunned Apollo Crews. He stunned Apollo Crews, and then General Aziz, I believe is his new name, the former Babatunde, came in and attacked Owens. So Zayn came in, danced all over Kevin Owens, and that was it. So Sami Zayn continues to be an absolute riot. I just don't know what the end game is to their current program, because Owens beat him at WrestleMania. He beat him again via countout last week on SmackDown in a WrestleMania rematch. So I'm not really sure what more you can do unless you do a third match, which I'm not complaining about because they have great chemistry. But if Owens wins again, what's really gained from that? You know what I mean? Like, they got to get heat on Sami Zayn at some point. I still say they team up. They need more baby faces on the show, to be honest with you. With the recent return of Aleister Black, which I'll get to, they have Edge, they have Roman, they have Corbin, who has not been on the show in recent weeks. And again, I'm not complaining, but they do have Baron Corbin. Unless he moved to Raw, and I'm just not... And I'm missing it, but I don't think he did. They have Corbin, they have Zayn still, they have Apollo Crews, who's a heel, Roman, Edge, Seth Rollins, Aleister Black's on his way back. They need more baby faces. So honestly, Sami Zayn, after the documentary is revealed, going back to being a baby face, I think would be very cool. Speaking of tag teams, we got Rey and Dominic Mysterio taking on Otis and Chad Gable. These teams have been feuding for a while now. You would never really know, because aside from the fact they've traded victories on the show, they've never really gotten much promo time. They haven't really gotten much storyline support. The matches have been decent. This was good. They got more time than I was expecting, so that was nice. And Rey and Dominic won, so it looks like they're building a case for why they deserve the next shot at the SmackDown Tag Team titles, which I'm all for. But first, they got to go through the Street Profits. So Rude and Ziggler are being interviewed backstage earlier on in the show, and they were interrupted by the Profits. So the Profits won another opportunity. Why, I have no idea. They lost fair and square last week. There is no reason to do another match between those two teams for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. I like the Profits. The matches these two teams have been good, but they've run that rivalry into the fucking ground. It's time to move on. So hopefully Rey and Dominic beat the Profits in a number one contenders match, if they even officially call it that. And then we get the Mysterios versus Ziggler and Rude at the next pay-per-view. And personally, I would do the title change. I would flip the switch and put the belts on the Mysterios. And then we get to the main event segment where Daniel Bryan was demanding an answer from Roman Reigns regarding Cesaro's challenge for a Universal Championship match at some point. So Bryan was out there, Cesaro was out there, and out comes Roman Reigns, who flat out says, Cesaro, you're not on my level. I am not giving you a Universal Championship match. And Bryan was saying that he was scared, blah, blah, blah. But then they turn the focus to Daniel Bryan. Roman says, I won't give you a championship shot, Cesaro, but I will give Daniel Bryan a championship shot. And not only will I give him a shot, I've never liked you, I never will like you. I hate seeing you on my show. I never want to see you again. So here's what we're going to do. Next week on SmackDown, we're going to face off one more time for the Universal Championship. But when I win, if and when I win, Roman says, I never want to see you on my show again. So basically, if Bryan loses, he's off of SmackDown. He's not gone from the company entirely. I know Bryan has been saying in recent days and in interviews and whatnot that his contract's expiring soon. He might want to go elsewhere, blah, 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 or become a part-timer. And that's entirely possible, but why even book the stipulation if he's going to come back to SmackDown? So that tells me they're moving him to Raw. Bryan has been a part of SmackDown even well before he returned to the ring 3 years ago. You know, when they brought back the brand split in 2016, which he just missed when he was an active wrestler, he retired a couple of months before they implemented it, he was the SmackDown GM. So Bryan has been on SmackDown this entire time during the 5-year brand split that WWE's been doing it for. I would like to see him on Raw. I think he's a great fit on SmackDown, and there are more matches for him to be had on SmackDown. He's already feuded with Roman, yes, and Cesaro he's had a bunch of matches with, but you could still do him and Seth Rollins. That's a fresh feud we've never seen before. You could still do him and Apollo Crews on SmackDown. Him and Shinsuke Nakamura, I think at some point as a formal feud would be cool. We never really got that. What was the other one I was thinking of? Oh, obviously Edge. We never really got Bryan and Edge, and Edge can blame Bryan for costing him the Universal Championship match because it was supposed to be Roman and Edge one-on-one in the first place. So why aren't we getting that? Unless they're doing that program on Raw, which I don't trust Raw with that program. I don't know if Edge is officially on SmackDown, a SmackDown-sanctioned superstar. I'm pretty sure he can just go wherever he wants. But, I mean, I would prefer to see him on SmackDown. So I don't really know what you do, to be honest with you. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. SmackDown lacks real baby faces right now. They have Cesaro, and they're pushing him, which is awesome. So they have Cesaro. They have Bryan, who appears to be on his way out of SmackDown. So they're down one major babyface there. They turned Edge. Big E he's on his way up, which is cool. Rey Mysterio is in the tag team division, so he's not really on that level. And they have Kevin Owens. So they have a decent amount of baby faces. I still say they turned Sami Zayn. But on the heel side outweighs SmackDown's babyface side. You know, for the heels, they have Rollins, Roman. They have Big E, Baron Corbin. Aleister Black's on his way back, as far as the men go. So I still say they need another top babyface on the show. So maybe they bring in someone from NXT. This is why I don't really want to see Adam Cole go to SmackDown just yet. I think of the two shows, he'd be a better fit on SmackDown. SmackDown already has a slew of heels. They don't really need Adam Cole right now. If anything, they need a babyface. Like a Finn Balor right now would be fucking perfect on SmackDown. I don't really want to see him go to the main roster just yet, just because I don't trust them with Finn Balor the same way they botched his run 5 years ago. Not initially, but over time, they really didn't do much with Finn Balor. And you can tell he just very much enjoys being back on NXT. But Finn Balor would be a perfect fit for this show right now. So I don't think Bryan's winning. I guess he could. But obviously the story is with Cesaro right now, so could they do like a 1 or 2 week title change and put the belt right back on Roman? Yeah, but I don't see them doing that, especially on a SmackDown, when you could have just done it at WrestleMania. So I think Roman wins, LOL, as he should. But then where does Daniel Bryan go from there? Does he go to Raw? Does he go to NXT? I think that would be fucking cool. I don't think that's happening. But you never know. So maybe they write him off the show for a little while, and then he comes back. I'm not really sure what's gained from that. I don't think he's becoming a part-timer just yet. So, again, I'm not really sure why you would do that when there's more that can be done with Bryan. For as long as he's been on SmackDown, with the recent roster shakeup, there's plenty more he can still do with members of the roster on that show. So, well, I guess we'll see how it shakes out and what happens next week and how he loses the match. I assume Roman wins clean, or with interference from Jey Uso, obviously. You know, it would be cool, and I've seen people say this, if they ban Jey Uso from ringside, because he's gotten involved in almost every Daniel Bryan match, and every Roman Reigns title defense, I should say. And Bryan even acknowledged that in his promo at the beginning of the show, saying that Kevin Owens would have beaten Roman Reigns a few months ago had it not been for Jey Uso. I would have beaten you at WrestleMania or at Fastlane had it not been for had it not been for Edge. And Edge would have faced you had it not been for Jey Uso. Or Edge would have beaten you had it not been for Jey Uso, or whatever. So hopefully they can ban Jey from ringside only to reintroduce Jimmy Uso. So I would love to see that. I'm not sure if he's ready to come back yet. I've heard nothing on Jimmy Uso's status. He's been gone for over a year at this point, so hopefully he is back fairly soon. He's definitely overdue for a return. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what they do next week, and they've built it up as a loaded show. You know, they have Roman and Bryan for the Universal Championship, with if Bryan loses with that stipulation, where if Bryan loses, he's off of the blue brand. And then for the Intercontinental Championship, they have Big E versus Apollo Crews in a rematch from WrestleMania. So I'm very excited for next week's show. I always look forward to SmackDown, but next week's show should be very good. And I thought this was a very good show overall, and building towards, you know, next week, furthering storylines, having some quality matches over the course of the show. And as I mentioned, there were a couple of backstage segments that didn't happen in the ring from the Big E and Owens stuff. We had Bianca Belair and Bayley going face-to-face, because it was made official earlier on in the day on social media, via WWE social media, that Bianca Belair will be defending her SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania Backlash, not against Sasha Banks, but rather against Bayley. So Sasha was on the show last week. She expressed frustration with losing at WrestleMania. Didn't cut like a full-on interview or a promo. She just kind of walked off. So maybe she'll be gone for a little while and come back. I think it's better than her just being on the show and not being in the title picture. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So hopefully she's off the show for at least a month or so. Maybe she comes back at Backlash and she attacks Belair. But Belair and Bayley, even though Bayley has done nothing to deserve a title shot, that's obviously an issue. Would it have killed them to just do a number one contenders match and have her beat a Ruby Riott or an Natalya or a Carmella or something to establish why she's getting a title shot? I mean, they are tied one win apiece in storyline, but I don't know if they acknowledge that here. But I like the back and forth. The ending was a little weird with Bayley getting one over on Bianca. It was a strange segment, but they furthered the feud there, so we now know we're getting that at the next pay-per-view. And as I mentioned earlier, we also got a vignette for the returning Aleister Black. Fucking finally. We haven't seen him on WWE TV since early October, over 6 months ago, when he lost to Kevin Owens on at the WWE draft. I think it was night 2 of the draft. He lost to Owens, got drafted to SmackDown, like very low in the rounds, dude. It was like round 6 or some shit, which is just embarrassing. I guess it was better than Andrade and Mickie James, who went undrafted, but both people are now no longer with the company, so I guess that just kind of goes to show what they thought of those two. He did appear on SmackDown, the first SmackDown post-draft, like on the stage, but other than that, we haven't seen him since. So it's great to see Aleister Black. He's Aleister Black back, rather. He was not sporting an eye patch, which was nice. You know, so I thought the whole eye patch shit was terrible last year, so I'm glad he's not doing that anymore. The vignette itself I thought was really cool. Didn't really give away what he might be doing upon his return, but it looks like he's doing a darker character. Anything is better than him sitting in a dark room, begging for someone to knock on his door. I am begging for a fight. Pick a fight with me, or whatever he used to say. That shit was stupid. This looks like it has promise. Hopefully they don't do it for too long. And they tend to do these vignettes for like way longer than they should. So hopefully it lasts a couple of weeks and we get him back in the ring soon enough. I think this show could only benefit from having a guy like Aleister Black around who is really, really good. We'll see how far they go with the push. This feels like a last-ditch effort. This feels like it might be it. If this push does not work out for Aleister, I feel like, not that they're going to release him, but he's probably just going to request his release or just whatever. Because I feel like he's giving it one more shot. Okay, let's see if this works. Because they've had their opportunities over the last 2 years, and they've just done very little with him. They've pushed him at certain times, specifically when he was on Raw, feuding with Murphy, and to an extent Rollins early on, and he went undefeated for a long time, which was great. But recently, they haven't done a whole lot with him. They haven't done a hell of a whole lot with him. So hopefully, this will get him back on track and put him in a good position to shine on SmackDown. But again, a good show this week for April 23rd, 2021. I am looking forward to next week's edition, and we'll be back here next Saturday here on the channel and on WrestleRant.com, breaking it down for you fine folks with what SmackDown will have in store. So if you're listening on YouTube, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. This week alone, we've had exclusive interviews. Exclusive interviews go up literally every single day. We've had Eddie Edwards go up today, the Impact star, or if it's not up now, it will be up pretty soon. Eddie Edwards, Head of Rebellion, Jordan Grace was yesterday. I had various interviews. Damian Priest, that interview went live on Monday. A bunch of interviews. AJ Francis of WWE's Most Wanted Treasures, and several others. So be sure to check out all those interviews from this last week. I would appreciate your support. And again, subscribe for more daily content coming every single day. Every single day we put up new videos, whether it be excerpts or Q&A videos or Peacock reviews of the network and shit like that and whatever else. I appreciate you guys' support, and be sure to check out all the videos out here on the channel, including all the interviews and everything else. We got plenty more to come going forward. And of course, John Cena. How could I forget? We had John Cena. That interview go live on Thursday, so check that out if you haven't already. All right, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.